We need you. Let's talk about it. Well, hello. Welcome to the inaugural YouTube video for Dial N for Nurse. I'm your friendly neighborhood nurse, and I'm really glad that you are here. So, a lot's been happening lately. Obviously, TikTok went out the window, and I have a couple of updates for you where everything is going. So, if you are new here, let's just go ahead and say I had a whole thing on TikTok where I was talking about a policy proposal that I have developed that would allow LVN LPNs a more equitable pathway to become BSN RNs, or Bachelor of Science in Nursing registered nurses. And that was all in the works. That was going great. And then I got derailed with the project. And by the time I was ready to come back, well, the landscape changed. So we've got some updates for you. And then I am going to kind of be talking about current events just very briefly. I'm not going to inundate you with everything right now, but I just want to touch on it and kind of what nurses' roles are going to be in this revolution, because that's what we're headed for, right? And then I want to kind of close it out just talking about where I see this going. I would really love to gain some feedback from you about what you'd like to hear about, and just a little bit about me before we keep going. I am a 13-year LVN LPN. I have a Bachelor of Science in Public Health, and I have a Master of Arts in Health Law and Policy. So that's kind of what this channel is going to be bent on. If you find that interesting, I would really love for you to stick around. I'm so glad you're already here. Thank you for watching this far already, and let's go ahead and get started. So quick disclaimer before we go much further though. I have a license to protect. So anything that I talk about on this channel is for educational or entertainment purposes only. I am not giving any sort of medical, legal, professional advice in any capacity. And I'm solely speaking from my experience as a nurse. And I am a professional, but I am not my profession. So we're just going to keep a little boundary there. And if you think that you have seen me, in a professional capacity, you know me from outside of the YouTube verse, let's just go ahead and say we don't know each other, and we are going to have a little circle of trust here. So thank you for that. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and continue. Without going too far into all of this right now, because who knows what tomorrow's going to look like. It has literally not even been a month since the whole inauguration happened in January. Like, it just blows my mind. It feels like, and excuse my chair, it squeaks a little bit. It blows my mind how much has changed in such a short amount of time. Now, if you've been paying attention to the news cycle, you were, paying attention around the election and really looking at what the politicians were planning, and especially the Heritage Foundation with Project 2025, then I suppose that we're not as shocked, but I feel like the rapidity is rather unprecedented, and there is a historical context that, we can allude to with 1930s Germany, and that is quite alarming that we are basically in that space again. So I don't really want to focus on that specifically, because again, things could change in an hour. Things could change right now. I don't freaking know. No one knows. And that's kind of the point. It's they're what's called flooding the zone. So without getting into all of that, let's focus more on the healthcare landscape. And unfortunately, not only are we looking at what is being termed a quademic, what the fuck, now we have RFK Jr. at the helm. Mr. Former addict, brainworm extraordinaire, anti-vaxxer, and now is looking to ship off anybody that has ADHD, neurodivergence, mental illness of any kind off to these like wellness farms. What? Can't fathom that right now. Looking at what that means for the healthcare landscape and resultant policies that may be going into effect, that remains to be seen. That all remains to be seen. We do not necessarily know how this is going to affect the workforce. Now, RFK Jr. did allude to implementing AI nurses, and if you are somebody that thinks that that is a good idea, do us all a favor, opt into that, say that you don't want a human nurse, and let us care for people who actually want our services, because we are not going to be responsible for the adverse effects that are absolutely going to be coming down the line for that. Heaven forbid, there's an AI nurse that misdiagnoses or does the wrong treatment or anything like that. If your hospital administration, any administration anywhere, some stupid MBA decides that this is a great business idea to cut some costs, you let them deal with the consequences of that. Do not allow your license to be manipulated. Just saying. And beyond that, because they are going to be cutting the labor workforce, we are already short-staffed. And I am speaking directly to that in my policy proposal, which by the way, I'm just kind of going back to that real quick. I recommend you go back and look at the shorts that I've already uploaded, some of the videos that I've already uploaded from TikTok. I still have not gotten around to uploading every single one of them. I will. But for some background on that and kind of more in depth, what the program would look like if it were to be implemented, I recommend looking back at that. Now, because I'm talking about cost savings, that's where I'm going with this. We already have a labor shortage. We're already short-staffed so badly. We are so burnt out, and the policy proposal is really aimed at remedying that short staffing and boosting the retention, all sorts of things. I'm not going to go into that too in depth, but the shifting focus on that is my next step is really going in and outlining and memoing every single cost saving opportunity for business people who run healthcare facilities to get on board so that they can then go and try and convince our representatives, who really should be acting in our best interest anyway. But if we're getting people who have deep pockets involved and they lobby for, hey, look at this idea that could save us a lot of money, maybe we can put, our weight behind it. The hope then is that it would be a pleasant side effect, that it would actually alleviate some of the nursing workforce shortage. So all of that being said, it's not just that we're dealing with, right? It's not just the untenable work conditions that are going to be made even worse by the changes potentially with RFK at the helm of DHHS, or the Department of Health and Human Services. So there's that. They're already making major changes to CMS, Medicare, Medicaid. Reimbursement structures are going to be very, very, very badly affected. Insurance companies are going to be scrambling. Your facilities are going to be up a creek when they're looking for some sort of reimbursement. So there's a lot happening, so much happening. And then on top of that, we do have ICE coming into facilities now. And I don't know necessarily how it's affecting subacute facilities right now. If you have any information on that, please comment below, let us know, because I in my current capacity, as you can probably surmise from my fingernails, please do not judge me. I work from home right now. I am very, very fortunate to be working in the role that I am, because I am back in school myself for my Bachelor of Science in Nursing. And I have not started clinicals yet. I'm kind of dreading going back on the floor because it's been a while and it's been a nice break. But that is where you come in, though. I really do want to hear your feedback. I want to hear how things are going. And especially with ICE coming into facilities, from a legal standpoint, I know that there's probably not a whole lot of direction right now. I really do hope, and I have seen, quite a few nurse content creators, our trusted voices. I really do hope that they are emphasizing that you do not have to give anybody any sort of information. Your duty, first and foremost, is to your patients. If they do not have a judicial warrant, I wouldn't even talk to them. You ask them for a judicial warrant, and if they don't have it, you just go on about your business. Get them to talk to your manager, get them to talk to your hospital administrator. The hope is, and I sincerely hope this, that your nurse manager and your hospital administrators are going to be backing you up on this, because it is a HIPAA consideration. I feel like I am just kind of rambling at this point because there are so many things to cover in the current event space. So let's go ahead and talk about nurses' roles in the revolution, because that's kind of what the meat and potatoes here is. I don't even know if I prefaced that in the intro, but this is my first YouTube video. Let's just go with it, okay? So we need you. Let's talk about it. So I do have notes here, and I'm going to try and refer back to them a little bit. But historically, nurses have always been revolutionaries, and we are first and foremost patient advocates. We are advocates for patients, but also the public, because the public can become a patient, population at any given time. We can become patients. So we are self-advocates. We advocate for ourselves all the time. And if you're a nurse and you're watching this right now, I am going to really strongly request, with gratitude, that you also advocate for us, because when you look at the social climate these days, nurses and teachers are under attack constantly. And I feel like because more people interact with teachers on a regular basis, it's easier to see their plight. It's more transparent. They're able to talk about their experiences more freely. But because of the nature of our work, because of HIPAA, because of just we deal with such heavy trauma on a daily basis, it can be very difficult to kind of offload with people who don't understand healthcare and what the job entails. It's so hard to explain it. It's just, if you're not in it, you're not in it, kind of way. There is a very, very big need for the public to get involved in nurse advocacy. There is a big, big need for more nurses to get involved in nurse advocacy. And let me just acknowledge full out here, it is a huge undertaking on top of the duties that you are already tasked with if you are working the floor, if you're interfacing with the public on a daily basis. It is a huge ask. For me to sit here in my place of privilege, working from home, saying, hey, nurses, go on ahead and use your voice. I know you're exhausted, but go on ahead and do it. No, this is not all on floor nurses, period. That is why I am speaking up. This is my kind of chosen role in the revolution, because here's another, aspect that we have to consider. We have licenses to protect. There is only so much that we can possibly do physically, emotionally, and practically, legally. Where there are so many protests happening right now, it would be so nice to take direct action and literally get out there with, a sign and, go and picket. And, some nurses in union states, if you are covered by a union, hopefully some of those actions are going to be covered and upheld, backed by your union. But especially in the southern states, I'm in Texas, that's not really an option. Even working from home, I can't just go out there and take time off of work justifiably and still expect to have a job. Then, there is the extra risk of possible arrest, and I'm not saying that anybody that goes to a protest is guaranteed to be arrested, but the threat is there because of First Amendment suppression. Our right to free speech, our right to peaceably assemble is constantly under attack, as we've seen the last couple of years. The whole thing here is we have kind of a limited role, but a very important role in this revolution, right? So let me look at specifically Emma Goldman, who was a nurse in the Civil War era. She was an anarchist. She was a complete anarchist, and she very heavily engaged in anarchist discourse. She led movements, and we have to acknowledge that times back then were different. They didn't have licensures. They didn't have kind of these professional sort of like decorum expectations of them. Anything that we say on social media, hence my disclaimer, can be put under a microscope. Hey, that's not very professional of you, or hey, this reflects poorly on you, or whatever. And by the way, my opinions are my own and do not reflect on the nursing industry as a whole, or my employer, or past employers, anything like that. I'll just have to make like a disclaimer slide. Anyway, also, many people, and I did not know this, happy Black History Month, by the way, for all who celebrate. Harriet Tubman was a freaking nurse. Literally had no idea. It makes so much sense. So much sense. She is trying to get her people to safety. She is tending to their needs. Like, of course, so many people, you can only imagine, had to have been injured on those journeys. And, I can only imagine that she's like rendering care as she is saving lives. Like, oh my God, amazing. She cured dysentery with herbs. Okay, anybody that says that naturopathic medicine or plant-based medicine is not viable is really talking out their ass. I mean, we know the big one that comes to mind, right? Digitalis comes from foxglove. We know this. Anyway, so many of our medications. So anyway, looking at these nurses, looking at how they took up their cause and they ran with it, we can look to these nurses as inspiration. And I am not saying, again, the landscape is very different these days. There are different demands that are being placed on us. There are considerations that we still have to have our jobs. We still have our, to feed our families. We have moral and ethical duties to the public at this time. And so many of us are called to this work that it's not like we are just going to give up our roles in the workforce to go off and completely become anarchists. It's simply not realistic, and certainly not for everybody. So where this kind of leaves us right now is, how do we either maliciously comply to whatever is being expected of us? How do we enact civil disobedience within the confines of our expectations? And so, I mean, as you might have guessed about me, I am super duper outspoken. When I work the floor, especially when I was a travel nurse, I let people know what it was exactly that I was thinking. Nurse managers and hospital administrators, facility administrators, just literally, they did not like me. I give exit interviews, and it wasn't just at like, a travel assignment. I definitely did do an exit interview at the last full-time gig that I had working the floor, because I had thoughts, hey, this is where you're fucking up, maybe fix it. And whatever they do with it after that is up to them. So many nurses see those pain points and they just never speak up. Those who have the pull, you gotta start doing it. You gotta start speaking up, especially now, because it is just not the right time to kind of be complacent and accept our fates. If we're going to have anything change, we have to do it. I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of round out this chapter here, because I'm getting a little long-winded because there's so much going on. It's hard for me to really keep track. How about we talk about some actionable items? And for today, let's talk specifically about taking care of yourself, really engaging in self-care, even though you've heard it ad nauseum from nurse managers and hospital administrators and they don't mean shit. Let's talk about actual self-care, and especially when it comes to facing down a possible pandemic, quademic situation. You need to be taking care of your body. You need to be taking care of getting moving in any sort of fashion that you can right now. It's imperative that we get some cardio in. Just go for a freaking walk, man. Like outside of the hospital. It does not count if you're in the hospital because you're not moving joyfully. You are not moving to actually intentionally take care of your person, right? That's moving to serve the system. That is not the same as taking time, even just yoga, getting some stillness, meditating. That is a self-love act. If you have like an infrared sauna blanket, seriously, those things are game changers. I highly recommend them. Portable, you can keep them at home, and just before bed, go sweat it out, scroll some social media if you need to. I love to doom scroll within reason. I'm trying to do less of that. Take a shower and go to sleep. I find that that's a really good way to just wind down after a really stressful day. And let's talk about mental health, right? So I mentioned doom scrolling. I'm trying to do less of it. This is not an ad. I'm not sponsored because I'm not that cool, whatever. I got something called a brick, and I don't remember the website. I'll put it down in the description. Best $60 that I've ever spent in my entire life. I have used it every single day since I've gotten it. Sometimes I've left it on for over 24 hours because I just needed to break from the doom scrolling. I needed to stop being confronted with the absolute batshit crazy bananas news cycle that it is right now, and reading everybody's hot takes. It's just exhausting. And you do have to kind of filter through the residue when you are expending so much emotional labor at the bedside. It's nice to get away from devices just as a whole and challenge myself to try and read. Or, if I'm sitting in front of the TV, which is still technically a device, I just watch some YouTube. Or, I watch something that is comforting to my soul. I also really value journaling, and I feel like building a journaling practice saved my life in so many ways, and I can talk about that in a different, video if you'd like to, know more about that, kind of how to get started. I'm very unstructured, but, I feel like maybe some people don't know where to start. I'd love to talk about that. We need you to take care of yourself so that you're still here, not because we still need you to take care of other people, but because you are valuable as human beings. And I feel like as nurses, we don't hear that enough. You have value. You are an incredible human being. Let's fucking face it, you're a superhero, okay? That's not lip service. That's coming from a fellow nurse. That's coming from somebody that has actually been in the pandemic space with you. 13 years in, I feel like I really just have to drive that home. You are incredible. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you. Let me gather myself here. Sorry, I just got a little emotional there after saying that, because times are going to be rough moving forward. And I had something written down here too. Joy is an act of resistance. Find joy where you can, because shit sucks so bad right now. You're going to have to find a way to get up in the morning and maybe not put a smile on your face, but find something that you can find comfort in as you're heading into work. Find comfort in while you're at work. Find a way to relax, unwind, and put the job away at the end of the day when you come home. This is not a sprint. This is not a marathon. This is something completely new and different that we have never been up against before in our lifetimes. And I feel like it is more important than ever that we find community with one another. The old saying of nurses eat their young. Yeah, we see it in the workforce, but it's got to stop. It's got to stop. We've got to find a way to really find some solidarity with each other now more than ever, especially as we come up against this giant that we don't know how to defeat yet. Now, do I think and feel that that giant will be defeated? Yes. And even though we're kind of shifting away from the current events thing, let's go back to one more current event that I feel is super duper important that I failed to mention, because nurses are using their voices. And we're so excited about this. So, nurses who have unions in Washington are banding together. They have introduced a measure to the House that is compelling, or would compel, healthcare administrators to have healthcare experience. Oh my God, that's hope for the future. That is hope that we can hold on to. If that were to be adopted, it could set a legal precedent, and let's all cheer on these nurses out in Washington, because that's the way to do it. That's what we want to see. More of that. Not everybody's going to be able to do it right. I know my policy proposal is going to be taking for freaking ever, and, hopefully it'll be finished within the next year. That remains to be seen. So anyway, moving forward. I also mentioned that I'm back in nursing school. I'm getting my Bachelor of Science in Nursing, freaking finally. Even though that's a whole thing in and of itself. I could definitely talk about my nursing journey up to this point, and what kind of led to this policy proposal more. And spoiler alert, it's because of spite. I'm getting it out of spite. I'm writing the policy proposal out of spite because there's lots of bureaucratic red tape out there. We can also do some health law and policy deep dives. I have so many topics that I'd love to talk about in terms of things that maybe could change that aren't directly related to this policy proposal, but relate to greater healthcare policy in the United States. We could compare and contrast the United States with other countries, public health focus. I find that to be terribly fascinating. General rants, nonsense. I guess that's the end of my list there. But also, let's see, we could talk about license protective measures, because that's super duper important, and we don't often get to talk about that with one another because we're so preoccupied with just surviving. I would really love to talk maybe about getting a social action group together. If this kind of takes off, we can talk about different things that nurses can do within their communities and for the greater community to perhaps advance the nursing profession as a whole. We could talk about maybe a mutual aid fund, especially in the southern states, since we don't have a nurses union. If we need a little bit of a cushion, perhaps we can do a bit, maybe even a barter kind of thing. We could do like a board. I've been thinking about doing a Patreon, and we could do some more deep dives into the policy proposal itself. I don't necessarily know if that would be viable on YouTube to the extent that I'd like to do it. So I feel like a Patreon might be more appropriate for that. And we could also build more community there. I'd love to build community here. I want to get to know my fellow nurses and what you're doing to be active in this revolution. If you need guidance, I need guidance. I don't know what I'm doing necessarily, but I'm trying. Let's try together. Let's figure it out. And with all of that, one last thing, especially this could be for Patreon as well, or even here. I ordered a book called Healing a Divided Nation by Carole, Adrienne. It was published in 2022. If anybody's interested in looking that up, I'll link it down below where I bought it. I think it was Simon and Schuster. It hasn't come in yet, but I am also kind of toying with the idea of, either just doing like book reviews here, talking about what I've learned, as also an incentive for me to read more, since I'm trying not to use my phone as much. But maybe we could even do a little book group, or kind of a book suggestion list. Learn about nursing history together. We could learn about how to take more effective social action as nurses. So much. I've covered so much in this video. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to rant and talk about some things that I'm very passionate about, because I just kind of feel like I've been sitting here for the past month screaming internally. And I know that so many of us are feeling the exact same way. So why not commiserate together? And instead of just commiserating, why don't we figure out a way to change the system, or at least find safety in numbers? And with that, I'm going to let you go. Please like, share, subscribe, as the people say, and go back and look at those shorts. And I will see if I can figure out where exactly I left off, and I'll try to upload more of those very shortly, because I do feel like there's some valuable information there. And again, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again next time. And just take such good care of yourselves. Okay, thank you. Love you. Bye.